If you Google GDP for Canada or for any other economy out there, you might come across a term called constant dollar GDP or current dollar GDP. In some cases, the website that you're looking at, whether it be World Bank data or StatScan or data provided by IMF, these numbers might also be listed as real GDP or nominal GDP. In real GDP, we are looking at the value of this production in terms of prices from some selected base year. So I could choose base year as 2010. So prices will be now from 2010, but the value of production will be from 2020, and that will give me my real GDP for 2020 with base year as 2010. Now, if I'm using current prices of 2020 and looking at the total oil production and total apple produced in this economy, I'm now going to ascertain the value of these two goods in current dollars, and that will give me the total value of final goods and services in this economy in current dollars, which is your nominal GDP. So both are giving us the value of production, but the prices that we are choosing can be from different years. When we hold prices constant, we have an inflation adjusted measure of GDP. Now, the change in real GDP over time will only be tracking the actual real production in your economy, because every time the prices are from the selected base year. Nominal GDP calculations will include both the effect of changes in production from one time period to the next and the changes in price level. So nominal GDP includes the effect of inflation, whereas real GDP is adjusted for inflation. Now let's look at an example to calculate real and nominal GDP. In this oversimplified economy, we have only two goods, apples and oranges. Production levels are in the first column and the respective prices are in the second column. So this is for year one, and these ones over here are for year two. So you can see apple production has gone up, orange production has gone up, and so have the prices. Prices in year one are lower than prices in year two. Calculating nominal and real GDP with this example will really emphasize the importance of inflation adjusted measures of GDP versus nominal GDP, which includes the effect of price volatility. In order to ascertain the value, I multiply the quantity times the price. For measuring the value of oranges, I multiply quantity of oranges times the price of oranges, and I am going to then sum them up, and that gives you your nominal GDP of $1,000 in year one. We've done the same process in year two. I'm again calculating nominal GDP with prices from the current year, and that gives you total value of production as $1,500. Now this is current dollar GDP or nominal GDP. Let's do constant dollar GDP, also referred to as your real GDP. In order to calculate real GDP, we have to specify a base year. So we will specify our year one as the base year. That's why note the term over here says this is real GDP in billions, but at year $1. I am looking at my quantities again from year one because I'm calculating real GDP for year one. So quantities will be from year one, but at base year prices, which also happens to be the same year. So in this case, your answer will be identical to what we had earlier. In year two, because I'm calculating the value of production in year two, my quantities will be now from year two. So these two are going to be from year two. However, I'm ascertaining the value of this production at year one prices, and that gives you your real GDP for year two as $1,150. Now just look at the calculations that we have got over here. For my nominal GDP from year one to year two, there's a phenomenal increase in our value of production. That's a 50% increase. So if you want to calculate percentage change in nominal GDP, this is also can be referred to as the growth rate in nominal GDP from year 1 to year 2. That would be 1500 minus 1000 over 1000 times 100. And you can see this is a 50% increase in your nominal GDP. Let's now compare this number to the growth rate in real GDP. In this case, this is 1150 minus 1000 divided by 1000 times 100. Note that growth rate or percentage change is simply the absolute change divided by the initial value times 100. So in this case, we see a growth rate of 11.5%. A much modest figure compared to this phenomenal growth rate of 50%. Now, why is 50% such a big number? Because this is not only tracking the changes in actual production, but it is also including the effect of higher prices. So remember, nominal GDP is looking at both price changes and production changes, whereas real GDP is focusing only on production changes, holding prices constant at some base year. From our previous calculations, we saw that nominal GDP increased by 50% and real GDP increased by 11.5%. So this one includes the effect of inflation. If I want to see how much of this nominal increase was due to inflation, we can simply take the difference over here, and that would be approximately 38.5%. Let's look at some numbers in terms of nominal and real for Canadian data. If you look at my first column, I have nominal GDP over these different years. So you can see big jumps over here. Whereas in terms of real GDP, we have much more moderate jumps. When we're working with absolute numbers, these numbers can be very confusing and they don't really make us realize the significance of the increases or the decreases that we might be experiencing. That's why percentage changes or growth rates become very useful. So growth rate, remember, is simply the percentage change in that variable. So here we have time series data for growth rate in real GDP for Canada from 1962 to 2011. These are all annual percentage changes, so annual growth rate for the last approximately 50 years. Now note that when we're working in absolute numbers and the numbers are in billions of dollars, the increases might not seem significant. But when we calculate the percentage change, you can immediately see that in the early 70s, Canada had very high growth rates, almost 6%. Then we have a major recession, which is giving you negative growth rates in early 80s. Again, not just a slowdown, but a major contraction of the economy in the early 90s. And then the Big Dipper in 2009 when we were hit by the financial crisis. More recently, we also saw this major contraction in the second quarter of 2020 when the economy came to a halt because of the global pandemic caused by COVID-19. Now next we're going to focus on price level and inflation rate. The aggregate price level, which we can denote as uppercase P, is the average price level. So it is giving you some average level of prices for all goods and services. This aggregate price level will be constructed by looking at the cost of a market basket. Now what is this market basket? This market basket will be a hypothetical market basket which an average Canadian family or household consumes. So your market basket could have basic expenditures on housing, on food, on clothing, entertainment, typical things that an average Canadian family consumes. Once we have calculated the cost of the market basket, we will construct an index, in this case a price index, which will be the ratio of the cost of the market basket in any given year to the cost of the market basket in some base year times 100. So here again we're using some base year, but do not confuse base year in the construction of a price index with the base year that we use for real GDP. In real GDP, we were tracking production changes, holding prices constant. Here we're doing actually the opposite. We hold the market basket constant and we'll be tracking the changes in prices from one year to the next. And that will give us our price index for various years. In this hypothetical economy, I just have three goods: apples, peaches, and grapes. So we have prices of the three goods pre-frost, so that's you can call it time period 1, and we have prices of the goods in the second year or the second time period T2. So prices you can see are varying, but our market basket will not change. So my market basket has 200 apples, 50 peaches, and 100 small bunches of grapes. So we could have many different time periods over here, but for any given time period, my market basket will remain the same. So let's calculate the cost of the market basket in each year. It would be simply price times the quantity of that particular good, and then we will sum them up across all three goods. I've already done this for you over here. So we have the total cost of the market basket in year 1 or pre-frost is $95. And the cost of the market basket, so exact same goods, gives you a total cost rising to $175. Why has this cost risen? Because prices have increased over time. In some cases, your cost of the market basket can actually go down. That would obviously occur only if prices have decreased over time. So the total cost of the market basket will now vary depending upon the prices for that given year. Now, just looking at this, we cannot immediately say by how much prices have gone up or down, or these numbers are quite difficult to interpret. The more goods I have in this basket, the bigger numbers I can have, and the more complicated will become my analysis. So this is not the end of the story, and we still have our last step to do, which is calculating the price index. So let's assume this market basket is from pre-frost, or my T1. My price index for year 1 will become 95 divided by 95 times 100, which is simply 100. Now note, I have not written a dollar sign or a percentage sign over here. When you create an index, it is unit free. It is just giving you a level, so it does not have any unit attached to it. Let's calculate the price index for year 2, and this is coming out to be 184.21. Price index for post-frost is telling you that prices have increased by 84%. And now I'm using a hypothetical number. Let's assume your price index for time period 3 comes out to be 92. This is immediately telling you prices have decreased by 8% since the base year. Because of the way we are constructing our price index, and the benchmark is your cost of the market basket in the base year, the price index for the base year will always be 100. And it gives you a quick comparison of overall change in price level since the base year. The most common price index is the consumer price index. The official inflation rate calculated by Bank of Canada is using the consumer price index. In consumer price index, the market basket comprises of the goods and services that a typical Canadian household consumes. The actual CPI is a weighted measure, so they will also put weights on different type of goods and services that the household consume. Like all type of economic data and calculations that we do, consumer price index, however, is not without its own set of problems. CPI, remember, works with some fixed market basket from the base year. Now, over time, goods and services change in their quality. So quality is not held constant. Refrigerators or ovens used by a typical Canadian household, but the quality of these goods and services changes over time. And that quality bias is not being adjusted by our CPI. CPI is simply tracking the changes in prices, not realizing that these changes in prices are because of the changes in quality. Second important factor over here is your substitution bias. Because the market basket is held constant, it does not take into account that over time consumers substitute towards different goods and services. So they might not be using some of these goods and services as much as before. Lastly, the problem with CPI is that it does not account for changes in the products that we are coming across. Now, consumers 10 years ago are not using the same goods and services that we are using today. So if our market basket is fixed to the base year, it's not including the new goods and services that are now in the markets and are increasingly being used by your consumers. So CPI, while very commonly used, does have a few problems, and we should keep that in mind when we are using it for policy making or for analyzing the information that we're receiving from it. Inflation rate is simply the percentage change in the price level. It's based on your price index. So let's assume it's based on our CPI. So inflation rate will simply be the percentage change in your CPI. Price index, remember, gives you the overall change in price level since the base year. So for example, I have this price indices for various years, and in the base year it's 100. In year 1, price level has increased by 2%. In year 3, it has increased by 6% since the base year. However, what's the inflation rate between year 1 and year 2, or year 3 and year 2? For that, we need to know the percentage change in the price level from one year to the next. So in my example, the price level in year 2 is 104. Price level in year 1 is 102. Divided by the previous year, which is 102 times 100, and that will give you 2 over 102 times 100, which is approximately 1.96%. Likewise, you can calculate the inflation rate in year 3. That would be 106 minus 104 divided by 104. Some other commonly used price measures are your industrial product price index and your GDP deflator. Now, these are both going to give us some average level of prices, but the market basket is now significantly different from our CPI. CPI, remember, was using your market basket typically used by Canadian households, whereas the industrial product price index will typically include goods and services purchased by producers. So changes in the industrial product price index will indicate what is happening to the cost of inputs for producers. GDP deflator is another measure of price level, and this is calculated by simply taking the ratio of your nominal GDP to the real GDP for that given year times 100. So if you have your nominal GDP for a particular year as 1500, and you have your real GDP for the same year as 1000, this is giving you your GDP deflator of 150. Now, what does this mean? It's telling you that since the base year, prices have increased by 50%. Now, what is the base year in this case? in your GDP deflator calculations, your base year is the same as the real GDP calculation base year. Let's assume I'm using 2002 as a base year for calculation of real GDP, and this is my GDP deflator for 2020. So nominal GDP of 2020 and real GDP of 2020. The 150 number is telling me that prices have increased by 50% since 2002. So just like our consumer price index and IPPI, GDP deflator is also giving you a measure of prices, but the market basket is now quite broad. It includes all final goods and services, and we are tracking the changes in price level since the base year for this real GDP calculations. Your GDP deflator for the base year will again become 100. So if my base year is 2002, nominal GDP and real GDP will be exactly the same for that year. And we saw that in an example of apples and oranges. For the base year, they are both identical, and times by 100, you can see your GDP deflator for your base year is again 100. If we were to calculate the inflation rate based on all of these different type of price indices, we'll see that they tend to move together. So this is the inflation rate on your IPPI. Inflation rate in green is based on your CPI, and the one in purple is your GDP deflator. You can see all of them are moving in the same direction. So it doesn't really matter which one we are using in terms of the overall trends in inflation. However, since consumers are mostly affected by a consumer basket, so CPI becomes the most useful one for the average person out there. And that's why the inflation rate that we see in the news or for policy purposes is typically based on your CPI changes. Note that what's happening to your inflation rate during the major recessions that we have seen. So in your early 90s, in the early 2000s when we had a slowdown in the economic activity, and then during the financial crisis. In most periods of economic recessions, your inflation rate is also becoming negative. And this correlation we also discussed in our very first class when we said typically inflation rises with the booming economy and falls with a contracting or a slowing down of an economy. So why does inflation mostly follow the same path as your business cycle? We'll answer that question when we do our aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, which looks at the shocks to the economy and then tells us which way your major macroeconomic variables like your GDP, inflation, unemployment will move. So for now, we're just focusing more on the calculation of all of these variables. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.